Hello. So, new banner is out and MD2 is also out. I have been greatly enjoying MD2, so I was not able to make the Ego and ID review yet, so I'm just going to do it today. So, let's start with the IDs first. Let's start with Sinclair. So, initial thoughts when I saw Sinclair was that actually I think that he's quite a fun unit to use because of his unique mechanic, Talisman. So the whole concept of this Sinclair is that he wants to stack Talisman and then use skill tree here to spend the Talisman and give the Talisman to someone else. What Talisman does is that on hit, you inflict Rupture by the count. So it gives, I believe, potency here. And when you get, the bad thing is that if you have the Talisman and Sinclair gets hit, he will gain Rupture as well. So it's a two-sided debuff. He needs to gain the Talisman, which enemies, if they hit him, will apply Rupture on him. And then he will spend it to give it to the enemy. So now when you hit the enemy, you will apply on them. And the very interesting thing about this debuff is that it does not get reduced when you hit that target according to the text here, because it is on hit and when hit, but then there's no remove one charge when target is hit. For example, Rupture here. When you get hit by an attack, take fixed damage and then you reduce the count. But in Talisman, there's no such wording, so that means it just stays forever until it hits 6 count, and then you remove all the Talisman and then you take fixed damage by its count. So ideally, you do not want the enemy to gain more Talisman, because if you give him more Talisman, then what happens is that you lose all of that extra Rupture. So I think it's very fun for Rupture Gang, because if you can have a source of count, for example Dimension Cutter, either of them, because they applied the Dimensional Rift debuff, or if you were to use maybe Ishmael or any of the other Rupture counters to just keep maintaining the Rupture count, then you can keep getting quite a significant amount of damage off this on boss type enemies. I think it's quite weak when you do wave battles, because you spend the Talisman. It takes quite a while, right, to gain the Talisman, because you gain let's say 4 Talisman here, and then you spend 5 on self to give 5 to the enemy, but you only have 4 here. So you need to use like what, skill 2 and sometimes skill 1, or 2 skill 2s and then you can use skill 3, or use a defense skill 2 and then skill 3, so it's a bit slow. There's also this one where on hit, if the target Rupture, gain 1 Talisman, but you need 3 Gluttony, which is a bit tricky. You would have to run Corp Hong, I think, plus Talisman Sinclair, use their skill 1s, and then find one more source of Glut somewhere else. But I'm not sure if there's any other Rupture characters that would have Glut. Maybe you can consider G Gregor, G Corp Manager Gregor as a Rupture character because of his skill tree, but honestly this one's a bit tricky. But this could help you to squeeze out one more Talisman here, so you get 5 in one turn, right? Because you get 3 resonance. If the target has Rupture, you gain 1 Talisman. So 1, 2, 3, you make sure the guy has Rupture beforehand, then you gain 1, then you get the passive that gives you 5, then you can skill 3, which would be very, very efficient. But it's quite a bit of setup. And yeah, a bit tricky in my opinion to get it, which is why I don't think he's going to be very, very strong for Railway. I just think it's going to be very, very fun for MD2, because you can go for the Rupture Gang if you get a very good starting Ego Gift, and then you can apply the Talisman stuff, and then you can try to do the damage. But right now in MD2 normal, I find that the enemies are actually still pretty squishy. So Unga Bunga is really the way to go. So I don't think you ever use Talisman Sinclair over Ninclair for the first 3 stages. I know Ninclair falls off on stage 4 and 5, because you can Unga Bunga, you can't Unga Bunga 4 and 5 anymore because you gain too much sanity. But 1 to 3 you can still Unga Bunga with Ninclair. So I think this character is fun. I don't think I will be pulling for him. I just think that he's a very fun concept, but it honestly is too much effort for me. It takes too long to get the nice number of Talismans and then apply on the enemy. I mean, you could also just get 4 and then apply and then just hit the guy, but I don't know. There's only like what, 4 bosses in that dungeon, and they're usually like you can just go wail on them with all your Busterless units. So right now I don't see a need to actually use this unit at all. The coinage just is pretty good though, I must say. Even though the growths are pretty bad, I will say like this is a pretty good range for plus 9, right? So that's 13. 4 to 13 range is pretty okay for skill 2. And then this one has a pretty high coin power, so it's a 5 plus 12, that's about 5 to 17 range, right? That's pretty damn good. Yeah, so his coinages are pretty damn good at high sanity. So I still think he's quite an okay unit for a 0-0. I just don't think that it's worth the effort to do this. Yeah, especially since it's resonance, so it's a bit tricky. I think maybe they want to release more units in the future that will support his playstyle. Because I think there's a Talisman Rodion coming out as well, so maybe that could be the missing piece that we need. I'm just double checking to make sure, like, okay, at least, I mean, Rose Banner Workshop Fixer also has Glut here, and he also has Rupture, so I think pretty okay. I think there is a fun team you could build here if you wanted to use that Sinclair, but I'm personally not recommending new players to pull for this Sinclair. Yeah. I think if you just want to have fun, your MD2, feel free, but if you are a new player, don't. And then next we go to K-Corp Hong. K-Corp Hong is extremely fun for MD2 because he straight up cannot die. That is his whole mechanic. So let's talk about his passive first, because that is the crux of his mechanic in MD2. When you get hit, if at less than 30% HP, you heal by 90% max HP, and then you gain 1 K-Corp Ampule. After this activates, you gain 1 Fragile every turn for the rest of the battle. So what this does, right, is that since this guy has 218 health and 47 defense, he's gonna last very long. So you can use a lot of skill 2s, you accumulate a lot, and you just straight up don't die. Yep, you just straight up don't die. So you have 1 don't die button every turn, and when you get this K-Corp Ampule, your skill 3 now will get a little bit more damage output because of this wording here, deal 5% more damage per K-Corp Ampule. The only other way to get K-Corp Ampules is by using your defense, and furthermore, K-Corp Ampules also heal you by the count times 5% off your max HP. His max HP being 218, so as long as you don't get to 4+ count, you won't die. So if you get 3, you basically heal, what, 15% of your max HP, which is a huge amount. You basically never die. So this character is extremely strong for solo runs. And his coinages are pretty okay, I would say. 5 plus 6 is a pretty standard amount. His growth rates are not very good. But Coin Plow plus 2 to targets with 5+ Rupture is pretty alright, so that makes it a 5 to 8 range. So that is about, I think, 5 to 13, right? And 5+ Rupture is not super hard for him to hit, but he does need something to maintain the Rupture count, which is his Dimension Cutter. His Dimension Cutter Ego will apply that Rupture count required for him to do the Rupture count application himself. So he makes for a very good solo character. Yeah, so he can gain Rupture count. This is not uptight, take note. So this is, I think, supposed to be 4 dimensional rift. So it applies 4 Rupture count. Yeah, so he can maintain the Rupture count quite easily, especially since he himself feeds his own ego. Yeah, especially once you get some gifts that give you more ego energy of any type, then you will start to pop off with this character. So I think very fun for MD2. Damage wise, he is of course outclassed by KK and TT in certain situations, but I will take note that he is a slash blunt character. So he is a bit of a different typing than the other 2 characters I just mentioned. KK Hong, I believe, is all slash, and TT Hong is 1 piercing move with shank and then 2 slashing moves, right? So this one has 2 slashing moves and then 1 blunt move instead. Yep. So this character has huge amounts of sustain, very fun character for solo Mirror Dungeon, but I think for just regular farming usage, you would probably use someone with more DPS. And for railway usages, well, we don't know if the railway requires us to use tanks, so maybe maybe just wait a little bit for railway release. We see what the Uptide 4 do, we see what the railway requires, then maybe I can recommend this character. Because right now I don't think I can recommend for railway, because railway 1 is usually a DPS check, right? So honestly, this one is really whatever. I think it's a very fun character. I think if you are already pretty much established with all of the meta characters, then you can feel free to get this character and just go and have some fun in the Mirror Dungeon, because this character is super good to solo, super good, because no die move, solo stacking Rupture, super thick character with self-healing. Yeah, it's super fun. You feel like a K-Corp character in Railway 1, where you're just wasting the player's time with how much tankiness and healing you have. Yeah, So I think this character is really, really good. Oh, and speaking of his coin power, I mean, you can see, right? It's 5 plus 5 plus 5, 5 to 15, pretty good. 8 plus 4, that's 8 to 16, pretty good. Skill 1 is 5, and then your coin power and this coin power, this is just solid. It's just a solid all-around character. Yeah. So pretty good. If you are a new player, then maybe not pull this because his other IDs are pretty much better for farming and for just speedrunning your content in general. Railway 1, we also use those two IDs, but I mean this guy wasn't here, so we can't really say. But I don't think we would have used this one over the other two either, because KK Hong just does so much damage, TT Hong also does so much damage. Yeah, TT Hong also has a very phenomenal passive, in case some people don't know. His passive is one ally with the most SP deals 20% damage with hits coins. So regardless, this passive is still incredible. Yeah. Okay, so IDs talked about. Was there anything else to say about this passive? Not really. This one is okay. It's not particularly amazing. Yep. So IDs wise, this banner I would not recommend for new players, and I think it's just a fun pull for any endgame players. Yeah. Red Eyes Ryoshu though, this one is actually really, really good in my opinion. So I think at this point in time, people know already that you are probably supposed to run Chef Ryoshu, because Chef Ryoshu feeds a shit ton of this resource. So here we have Lust, Glut, and Envy. Chef Ryoshu feeds the Lust and the Envy. Yeah. Because her skill 2 is Envy and her skill 3 is Lust. Although it's a bit slow to get this Lust, but I mean, yeah, I think it's totally fine. She feeds these two, and then if you look at her next ego, Chef Ryoshu feeds this, and this, because this is exactly what she has. She has Wrath, she has Lust, and she has Envy. So she is the perfect character to use these egos, which is why it's very strong on her. And what this does, right, is that these egos are very, very strong. Yeah. So, inflict 3 bind next turn. If target has 3 plus bind, inflict 1 plus coin drop next turn. So, take note that you need to inflict the bind this turn, right? In order to get this effect off. So, this does not set up for this. This is to set up for next turn. So, if you want to do this ego and inflict the bind next turn, then you need to wait for next turn and then use this ego again to get the plus coin drop. But in general, you just want someone else to bind the target beforehand. You can use things like Roseate Desire Ishmael, you can use things like Snag Harpoon Ishmael, you can use Chain of Others, Smorsalt. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to get the bind. And if they somehow go first, of course, because those two are naturally really slow characters, usually. But pretty good, this debuff. This debuff is extremely strong. If you don't know what plus coin drop does, it will reduce enemies' plus coin rolls. So if they were to roll, let's say plus 2, plus 2, plus 2, they all instead roll plus 1, plus 1, plus 1 because of this debuff, reducing the power of the plus coins by the count. Yeah. So it significantly reduces the amount of damage you take, especially when the enemy has a lot of coins on their move. And then this one, if the target speed is lower than users, inflict 2/Fresh next turn. So it's a very good setup to inflict this 3 bind for something else. And if you were to activate this one time, on Clash Win, you inflict 1 bind next turn. And in case you don't know, right, ego passives do stack. So if you use this one once and use the second one once, you do get both passives activated at the same time. Yeah. Okay, then the Corrosion version is just inflicting more debuff, and it's a negative coin, so on average I think it does do less damage, unless your Ryoshu is very low SP. Yeah. Okay, and then so what does this ego do is that if you don't even get this plus coin drop, no worries, because this 3 bind next turn will be used for this part. Target 3 slots, if main target's speed is lower than users by 3 or more, coin power plus 4. And hey, look at that, that's 3 bind. So usually you will get this, and this is in Library of Runa called Mio's Prowess, where if you're faster than the enemy by a certain amount, you get a lot of coin power. And I believe Gebura had infinite speed, so infinite speed usually just beats everyone's speed. So she will just keep getting this passive, which is why it's super strong on her. But now it's appearing on Ryoshu, so maybe that's Gebura hinting. Anyway. If main target speed is lower than users by 3 or more, coin power plus 4. So coin power plus 4, I told you, is crazy, right? So if you roll the hits here, it becomes plus 12. Then it becomes a 34 damage AoE move, okay? And only the main target speed needs to be lower. And then look at what this one does. You inflict 3 bind next turn onto a single target. So it is just perfect to do skill 1 into skill 2. And if you just want to use skill 2, then make sure you bind the target beforehand, or make sure your speed is higher than the target by at least 3 or more, so that you can get the additional damage. But either way, this is a ridiculous ego because of that AoE part. If I want to say which one's weaker, then of course the Red Eyes is a little bit weaker because the damage output is lower. But setting up Slash Fretch next turn is also pretty damn strong. It's just a bit unfortunate that the only other Slash Fretch applier is also Ryoshu, and we don't usually run her, so it's a bit rough. I'd rather Slash Fretch set up for Chef Ryoshu with another Slash Fretcher, but sadly Ryoshu is also the one that applies the Slash Fretch, so it's a bit rough to have it on that ID as well. So yeah, nothing we can do about it, but I'm just saying that we need another source of Slash Fragility on another character in order to make it really work out. Okay, so besides that, let's talk about this ego. Is that this ego having the coin power makes it so strong in an AoE, and if the target has 3 plus bind, then you deal 20% damage. So 3 plus bind, 3 plus bind. Perfect, right? If this skill staggers or defeats a target, you heal user and the ally with the least HP by 10% of max HP. It has healing on it as well. And if you look at the passive, if this unit healed more than 10% of its max HP this turn, you gain 1 attack power up next turn. So it also buffs you when you heal. So this ego really does everything. And if you can set up bind beforehand with either this ego or another ego that applies bind next turn, then you're pretty much good to go. And even then, right, if you look at your passive, as long as you win a clash, you inflict 1 bind next turn. So this is extremely good ego. Yep. I think the only worrisome little part is the cost stage here, because this is a 7 cost ego, and then this is also a 5 cost ego, so it costs quite a bit of resource. But if you are going to just use the early turns in Railway to farm the resources, then I think you're pretty much okay. And if you're doing MD2, you can just take an ego gift for it that will give you a bunch of energy, and then you can just use this ego willy-nilly. So I think that this ego is extremely strong. I think we will definitely see some use of it if the enemy were ever weak to this typing. And even then, right, as long as you're weak to Slash or weak to MV, this coin power plus 4 here already makes it so incredibly strong that I would recommend everyone get this ego as well. And I want to talk more about the corrosion ego as well, because if you can somehow corrode this ego, and unfortunately it's a negative 14, right? But if you look here, you get final power plus 7. That's a huge increase. Huge increase. Also, the damage here increases as well. So unfortunately it's a negative coin, so you would need to corrode your Ryoshu, or you need to do something in order to get a bit more damage. Otherwise it'll be 33 minus 14 then plus 7, so it'll be 33 minus 7, that's about 26, right? 26 damage, which this is actually still better. So yeah, even though this has higher potential damage, you do need to not roll the hits here, so you need to be low sanity. Yeah, but either way, this ego here is still pretty strong because it's a damn AoE that costs 7. Okay, 7 is about standard for AoEs, but it's an AoE ego slash envy with coin power plus 4, and a condition here that increases damage, and a passive that gives you more attack power up next turn as long as you heal. And to heal, all you need to do is stagger or kill. Stagger, by the way, stagger. So it reminds me a lot of Onslaught from Gebura, where she triggers the skill again when she staggers someone with it. So overall, I think this ego here is extremely good, and I'm glad that I got this ego. This ego is to help set up for the other ego, and it's generally quite good in my opinion, yes. So I think the Ryoshu banner is probably something that people want to be pulling for. I admit that if you do want to go for like piercing AoEs, then you will go for Ebony Stem and Sun Shower, Isang. But if you want to go for slash AoEs, right, we don't really have too many options. Yes, we only have, I think, Yi-Sang and Rodion Corroded. 4th Match Flames, both of them. Yeah. So if you don't have the 4th Match Flames AoE, then probably would want to pull this for AoE slash. Otherwise, if you think that the enemies are only going to be single target slash weakness, then yeah, then we can just use Dimension Cutters, because Dimension Cutters are also slash. Yeah, Dimension Shredder, sorry. Dimension Shredder. Oh, it's Pierce. Oh, never mind, sorry. Was I thinking of someone else? Oh, this one. I was thinking of this one, yeah. So, this one's Pierce. This one is Slash. Any Slash AoEers besides these two? I think it's only Rodion with her Corroded Ego. Yeah, on Corroded, this does AoE. And then this one is 4th Match Flame. It just naturally does AoE. These are not uptight take note, so the damage is a little bit higher. But in general, I think that the Ryoshu AoE Slash is probably the best option we got for AoE Slash. For AoE Blunt, we have quite a few, right? We got Rhyme Shank, Ledger Domain, Fluid Sac. And then for piercing AoE, I think we got Ebony Stem. And I can't remember if Sun Shower was... Can't remember what Sun Shower was. Hold up. I swear did the last double check. Piercing AoE. Okay, so yeah, they're both piercing. Yep, so slash AoE wise, I think this Ego is the best one we have for now. We don't have a 5-slot slashing AoE, but this one comes pretty damn close with a 3 AoE with a pretty huge amount of damage attached to it. So I would recommend this one. Yeah. So I did get my Ryoshu ready. I could probably spark out the next one as well, just so for collection purposes. I'm not sure if you will use the Red Eyes Ryoshu without the open one, because it's quite expensive to do this into this, is what I'm trying to say here. So I'll probably just use this raw in order to get damage output if the enemy is weak to the typings, instead of trying to set up the specific bind plus slash fetch. I can just use a bind from another place and then use this, is my thinking. Yeah. But I'll probably just spark this just for collection and test it out as well, because I'm not really sure right now how the MD2 hard is going to be, and I also don't know how the refraction wave is going to be as well. Yeah. Okay, so summary. I think for new players, this banner here is a no pull. Definitely don't pull for this banner. I think that if you just want to have fun in MD2 with these characters, feel free to get them, because I think that they are perfect characters for MD2 shenanigans. For Ryoshu, I think that these two Egos are very, very good because they are only slashing AoE source, as well as Open Eyes Ryoshu doing a crap ton of damage in an AoE and costing about the same as a AoE He Ego would. So it's very, very strong, and if you have Chef Ryoshu, then the pairing is perfect because they feed... Chef Ryoshu gives quite a lot of energy into these Egos, and she only needs a Gluttony in order to get this Ego up and running. So you need another source of Gluttony from somewhere else to get this one going, which I think is not too difficult, especially if you are running any of the other strong characters like maybe Ting Tang or G Gregor. Yeah. Okay, so that is it for this video. Leave your comments for whatever opinions you have, and I will talk to you guys later, because I will also be recording my thoughts on MD2. Yep, and thank you all for watching. Bye bye.